Welcome friends. I welcome you all to video 6 of week 8. In this video, we'll discuss about language variation in question documents, how region, culture, education and identity shape written evidence. Friends, you must remember that every document carries the writer's background. That document alone does not travel. The story, the background of the writer also travels with the document. Friends, today we'll explore a dimension of forensic linguistics that connects writing to identity. Every document carries subtle marks of who the author is, about their region, education, social background, exposure to languages, and even their profession. This beautiful word called jargon. Jargon is technical vocabulary that is developed, used by the people as per their professions. For example, a medical professional will use certain set of words which a chartered accountant cannot use. And what a chartered accountant use a set of words as vocabulary, as jargon, that cannot be used by a layman. So in that way, exposure to the languages and the words as per the profession, that matters a lot. Friends, these markers may not be consciously added, but they appear naturally, often without the writers realizing it. In question documents, when we analyze these documents, these variations become meaningful evidence, helping investigators to evaluate authorship, detect the disguise, or even the identity deception. Now let's understand what is linguistic variation. Friends, linguistic variation refers to the systematic differences in language used across individuals or groups. These differences may appear in the choice of vocabulary, in the spelling habits, in the punctuation patterns, in the syntactic structures, even in discourse styles. In forensic work, these variations help identity whether a document matches the linguistic identity of a suspected writer or the same deviates from unnatural ways. Now, let's understand the regional variations. How geography leaves traces in writing. Friends, even educated writers carry regional traces in the writing. You must have come across certain cases. When somebody is talking to you, you will definitely ask that, are you from this particular region or not? Why? Because of the words. That means every region carries a particular set of styles. India being a diverse country, India has 22 official languages and more than 3,500 dialects. But friends, if we reverse this pyramid, we can identify 3,500 varieties of dialects when we wear the forensic linguistic lens. Let's understand with an example. Certain prepositions patterns, habitual use of specific discourse markers, spelling preferences influenced by local pronunciation or culturally shaped idioms. Friends, a writer from a Western India may display different syntactic rhythm compared to someone from the South. And these patterns are rarely intentional, making them reliable markers of linguistic origin. I have already told you in my previous video about MTI. Friends, MTI stands for Mother Tongue Influence. When we talk about second language acquisition, we have to talk about second language influence too. Now, what is second language influence? It is when mother tongue shapes English writing or any other language writing. Writers who use English as a second language often carry subtle structure from their mother tongue. These may include word order patterns, article usage differences, literal translations, or certain discourse sequences. Let's understand with one example. A Gujarati or Hindi speaker might write statements like myself going to office, while a Tamil speaker may show different structuring pattern. Friends, these habits are strong indicators of linguistic identity and help narrow authorship possibilities. Now, when we talk about educational background, friends, with this education background, we can understand, we can know, we can identify how schooling influences syntax and vocabulary. The level of education shapes vocabulary range, spelling accuracy, sentence complexity, and even coherence strategies. A forged document written for an individual with limited literacy often overestimates their linguistic ability. Similarly, a forged letter meant to sound uneducated may contain structure too sophisticated for the intended portrayal. Friends, courts often examine writing levels when determining authenticity of wills, be it confessions or even personal letters. Now, let's talk about the professional influence. Yes, when occupation shows up in writing. Friends, writers often reveal their professions unconsciously. As I told you earlier, a doctor might use medical metaphors. A lawyer might write with legalistic phrasing. A manager might display structured bullet style sequencing even in handwriting notes, where a teacher might correct their own spelling mid-sentence. That's a very fundamental nature of a teacher. These occupational fingerprints help investigators match question documents with professional identity. When the world is talking about neutral gender writing, friends, gendered writing patterns, even that can be detected with the tendencies. Friends, when gender cannot be determined reliably from writing alone, linguistic research shows tendencies. For example, some writers may show greater emotional elaboration, while others may maintain action-focused phrasing. But these patterns vary widely and cannot be used independently. They are supplementary indicators that help contextualize authorship when combined with other linguistic markers. Now, when we talk about age-related writing patterns, we can also reveal generational language identity. Friends, younger writers often show digital age influence. You'll find more abbreviations, conversational style, tone, emoji style punctuations, shorter sentences, and flexible syntax. On the other end, people from the old school, the older people, or we can say older writers, they may display formal structures, traditional vocabulary, and consistent punctuation habits. When a question document deviates sharply from the expected generational style, authenticity is questioned. For example, a handwritten suicide note from a young adult that uses unusual, formal, outdated structure, that becomes suspicious. Now, let's understand cross-linguistic inferences. How influence shows up in spelling and grammar. Many authors display recurring spelling patterns influenced by their primary language. For example, Indian English writers may confuse vowel spellings due to phonological influence, whereas South Asian writers may show retroflex-driven spelling substitutions. Friends, these features act as strong forensic indicators. When a forged document attempts to hide identity, inconsistencies in these patterns expose manipulation. Let's understand with one example. The example of regional variation exposes a forged complaint letter. Hypothetically, in one case, an anonymous complaint letter was written to frame an employee. The letter attempted neutral English, but subtle traces of regional influence, that is, specific preposition misuse, absence of articles, and a typical Western Indian close rhythm, matched the suspect's writing samples. The forged letter also displayed unusual formal style and vocabulary, inconsistent with the suspect's non-record, signaling deliberate disguise. The combination of natural and manipulated features helped to confirm the authorship. Let's talk about another case where cultural references reveal the writer behind an anonymous threat. A threat not included idioms commonly used only within a specific linguistic community. Friends, these phrases did not occur in any other suspect's writing except one individual, whose previous personal message displayed the same cultural markers. Even though the note was written in English, the cultural influence leaked through idiomatic patterns. These become a decisive indicator in the investigation. Friends, when there is a variation, there is a clue, because variation matters in forensic analysis. Variation is not noise. On the contrary, variation is identity. The way people write reveals where they come from, what languages shaped them, how they think, and how they were taught. When a question document aligns with the author's variation profile, authenticity strengthens. At the same time, when it deviates sharply, the suspicion arises. Friends, variation analysis therefore becomes cornerstone of authorship evaluation. As I told you earlier, the language carries the writer's worldview. Writing does not simply reveal intention, it reveals identity too. The words, patterns, rhythms, and errors we carry reflect the linguistic journey of our lives. I'm sure that you must be enjoying the course. Thank you very much for joining on this session. In the next video, we'll move into the linguistic analysis of forged signatures, altered digital documents, and multimodal textual evidence, expanding your understanding of textual authenticity in complex investigative environments. Until then, stay tuned to the course. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much.